Vision Radio 345, Awesome in Talk, serving our community.
Vision Radio 345. The station to be tuned into. Keep it locked. Keep it locked. Keep it locked. Keep it locked.
Welcome to Vision Radio 345. Mr. Cain in the seat with my my usual host. But he wasn't here last time because he was in the chat, but I've got him here with me live today. Mr. Ian Rose, original broadcaster from Break FM way back in the day, and he's here with me today on this show, which we're going to be, which is entitled "Where Are All the Good Men Gone?" These are questions that some young people are asking, some young women, even the older women are asking the same question: Where are all the good men gone? But I've got with me on my panel today. Before I say that, Ian, how you doing? I just want to check you and make sure you're good. Are you here?
Yeah, very good. Nice to be back on Vision Radio. Very nice to be back, and I'm looking forward to this topic. It's been brewing.
Okay, so let's introduce our guest, Zara.
Hello.
How are you, and what you been up to? You good? How's things going with you at the moment? Great.
Yeah, can't complain. Can't complain. Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the show. Fadia, how you doing?
Hello there, all good, all good.
Great. And Fion, these are new guests who came into our show for today. Fion, how you doing?
Yeah, all well, man. Good to hear from you.
Great, great. And Kelvin B, how is Kelvin doing?
Kelvin B is good. Had a busy weekend. Yeah, loving the sun. Yeah, I'm all good, all good.
Great.
Yeah.
And Darren, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, not too bad. Just keep it quiet and cool.
Quiet and cool. Okay, so let's get into the topic of today. And the topic today is what's being asked is where are all the good men gone? Now, I want to pose these questions to Zara and Fidel. I want you to just both give me your kind of idea as young people or young adults growing up. What it's like out there trying to find a decent young man, and what's the reason why young people and some of the older people are asking where are the good men gone?
I think it's a good question, but do you know what? Could I get some clarity? Like, when you say good man, like, what is a good? What would you define as a good? Or is that supposed to be up to me?
Yeah. Well, what's your definition of that? What would you see as a good man?
I think it's complicated because I think the word good is complicated. I think people aren't really good or bad. I think decent, I'd say a decent man is... I think there's a lack of responsibility nowadays. I wouldn't even just say it's just men or women, but I do think that there is a lack of responsibility or even sense of responsibility. And I think one of the biggest issues is the lack of sense of social responsibility when it comes to men in particular. I think they're very quick to become individualists.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't know much about like why the family unit is falling apart. I don't think I'm well read enough, but in my personal opinion, I think there's a lot of patterns when we see like single parent homes.
Yeah.
The single parent that remains is often the mother. So, and then I think it begs the question of why does one feel as though they can leave? And it would be very taboo, I think, for a woman to leave. And it's like almost though there's not a choice. So I think the good men are gone because the good men had a choice. And women are just neither good nor bad. I think we're more neutral. I just want to add anything.
Okay, Fidel, let's hear what you got to say. It's a very interesting answer, Zara. We're going to hear what Fidel has to say.
Yeah, I would say what Zara said so far is spot on, personally. But I would like to also flip it a little bit. I think, obviously, good is, you can't really say someone's good and someone's bad. Like, I feel like judging is not that great. But I also think society has nothing good in store for these young men. So when it comes to being good, if you're not rewarded for being good, such as, like, say you're working hard, unless you're self-employed, hard work gets you nothing. And even then, it's way better to just work smarter and not harder. So I just think also like if people are constantly trying to be good but not getting anything back in this day and age, then I think no one wants to be good.
Okay, so is anybody on the panel want to kind of respond to what Zara and Fidea just said? Anyone on the panel responding to that?
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead, Fion.
Yeah, to be fair, I agree with the last person that kind of spoke. I think in terms of the term where are the good men gone, I don't necessarily feel like they've gone anywhere. Well, again, I feel like it depends on what you define as a good man. But I would say from my standpoint of things, I don't really feel like the so quote unquote good man has really gone anywhere. It's just I feel like it just really depends on what you class as a good man, and then on top of that, if that aligns with you as a person or with women in general. So yeah.
Okay.
I think from on this end, I think it's about basically responsibilities. How much responsibilities are you willing to take? How much responsibilities are you willing to challenge in regards to family, in regards to self, in regards to knowing that you've got a partner and what you would like to, how you would like to work with that partner, and what the agreements will be within the relationship.
Okay, Darren.
Well, I would say first thing really is to get a clear definition of what a decent man is, what the expectations are of a decent man, but also what is it that a decent man would want in return. So in terms of understanding what a decent man looks like or what it is that they require, so then it's reciprocal.
I'm just going to say yes, yeah. Dan, great point. I'm just going to say Fahida and Zara. I mean, these are just key points that we're mentioning. But have you got anything to respond to what the panel has just said? Is there anything that sticks out for you with that in terms of answers or understanding?
Definitely what I forget your name. Sorry, you said something about responsibility.
I think that was Kelvin. Was that Kelvin? Yeah.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, Kelvin.
Yeah, definitely about communication.
Yeah,
and like everyone taking responsibility. And then, if I could add to that, I think that happens a lot of the time in family structures where like there's a responsibility and it's outlined and it's clear. But I think further on to that point is sticking to it, or like not, staying to your word.
Yeah. So the other things what you're finding with some of the younger men of this generation, it could be scaled out to both ends. But what are you finding? What's the most thing you have to be dealing with? Is it the trauma? Is it the way they're behaving? Because obviously sometimes we have to look at the way some of the young women are behaving. Not all, but some. And there's been some things that we've heard about and probably seen over social media, which doesn't really put people in a really great place in terms of them building life with somebody and having a relationship, because everybody needs to be accountable for actions, right? And I think that's one of the main things. Yeah. But just to get your view on that.
Yeah, I think. Could you repeat the question to me, please? Like just the last.
Yeah, I was saying that everybody has to be accountable for the way they behave, including the young men and the women. But we're just trying to find out what key points do you see when you're engaging with young people, not young people, young men, the traits.
Can I say something in regarding to that? Is that okay? I feel like in this day and age, right, I think women have sort of realized that they are financially independent and not stigmatized for their single lifestyles anymore. They have more agency to be choosers in who gets to dates and who they get to court. And I think this sort of like it's similar to traits that men are looked for. So because the reasons like back in the day when men were the ones who were, the main providers and they were the ones that were going out and make like they could easily get a woman who was going to be faithful because the woman has to like rely on the man for every single thing. But nowadays that's all changed. Like the society has changed and now women are basically not relying on men like in everything. So I just think I would say that the only difference is men are expected to be those things on top of the society expectations. Yeah, so I just think women are not, they don't need a man anymore, so they can act how they want and so on, and this sort of leads to the good men not being at the forefront of women's minds.
Yeah, I think there may be some element of truth in there in that, from what we've seen
I
anyway.
agree.
But I think it goes beyond the needing of a man or not needing a man. And when people often say, "Well, I don't need this and I don't need that," um, they're talking about they don't need the negative aspects, not necessarily the individual, not necessarily the male or the female. So they're talking about the negative aspects of what comes with being in a relationship. And oftentimes, what we do here is something that's what we call a one-way street. It's one-way traffic. So when we ask the question, where have all the good men gone? When women ask the question, where have all the good men gone? And I think it could also be asked, as Mr. Kane quite rightly said at the beginning of the show, where have all the good women gone? And we've got to realise that we're talking at each other in cross purposes, because if we flip the script and said, what makes a good relationship? First of all, we all ask for clarity in terms of definition. And I don't believe that in terms of good and bad. I personally believe that there's only none good but God. But when we say a decent person, we know contextually what we're talking about, especially within a relationship context. Um, what makes a decent person or a decent man? And I think we all know that in context. But when it comes to flipping the question or flipping the whole thing and saying, what makes a good relationship? What do you look for in a good relationship? I think that also needs to be asked of our females on the panel, because I believe that the good men are out there, but there are instances where good cannot be practiced because of what some men have to face, and also choices that we make. I've got daughter. I've got two sons. I've got daughter. And I always say to my nieces and my females in my family and other females that I come across, that your choice counts for a lot for your consequences, if that makes sense, on both sides of the aisle. So it's not that there aren't any good men out there. Sometimes women make bad choices, and they complain about the choice that they make as if to say it was all men. And that can be said of men. And I'm an old man now, but when I was younger, I definitely made some of those bad choices. But I know that it's not all good. It's not all women that are like that. There are bad men and bad women, and not so decent men and not so decent women. But I'd like to ask a question. What do you, as females, young females, look for in a relationship?
I think more than anything, someone that's fair. Like, I don't think it's impossible to find a good man or a decent man. I don't think these things don't exist. I don't think, like, even to say, I think I've been in a quote unquote good relationship, but it's more based on we have an understanding of each other as individuals. It wouldn't even be like man and woman problems. It's like when we was having arguments, it's not a man trying to be a man and put a woman in his place. Is the two of us with the equal respect for each other's intelligence and mental capabilities. Like, I never felt demeaned by this individual. I think nowadays the attitude that I see with a lot of young boys is there's a lot of combativeness and a lot of like, not like quite like toxic masculinity with nothing to prove, nothing to show for it. Like, there's been no protection and no providing as of yet, but there's a lot of violence and a lot of before relationship is even established. Like, in terms of, okay, like I want to marry you, I want to take you seriously, but then there's
sorry, after you finish, can I interject?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right. What I think a lot of the problem is as well, and I'm not putting it all on ladies, yeah, but I think sometimes what ladies are attracted to, yeah, is quite toxic. And this label of toxic masculinity, I think it's sometimes subjective, because when certain situations occur, you're going to want that toxic masculinity to kick in, yeah, i.e. protection.
Yeah, but I wouldn't class that as toxic. That's not toxic. It's just masculinity.
But it's a word that's thrown out, and it's like basically leaning towards like male and masculine, but there's toxic people. Do you see what I'm saying?
There's toxic people, but I also think there's toxic masculinity as a separate.
Yeah, and there's toxic femininity. Like, we have to be fair here, because it clearly is. But the point I'm trying to get at is this: it sounds like if you don't have the correct vetting process and a clear picture of what type of man you want, and not go by just impulse. I'm not saying you personally, but like not go by impulses, i.e. his swag, the way he talks. But does he have a plan? Is he working towards something that is going to help him, and in the future, that is fully legit, fully respectable? Because a lot of cases, that is what happens. Ladies get attracted to certain types of men who they have no business really entertaining in the first place, especially if they have the particular outcome that they desire, i.e. commitment, marriage, children. But if sometimes in a lot of cases the vetting process isn't there, because there's no standard of what to look for. That's why I asked, give a definition of what a decent man is, what they're supposed to do. But also, I also said as well about knowing what a decent man requires in return. So, kind of touched on it a bit earlier on, but it's about respect. But a lot of the times, the decent guy is perceived as boring. And as a result, they don't necessarily get a look in, So in a lot of cases, the reason why there are these bad situations, bad experiences, is because we're not being taught, and that includes dudes as well, but we're not being taught about who we should be looking for, what the outcome should be, and what we might have to give up, sacrifice to achieve these things. And I think it leans harder on the ladies, because when a child is concerned, when a child is created, it's 9 times out of 10, the child is left with the lady. And that's why it becomes a very, very serious situation. But I think it's about getting a clear definition of what this man looks like, what in terms of his actions, does he check for me personally? Does he, because a guy could just be interested in one thing and one thing only, and don't have the maturity to understand
or
that
the vision
I'm playing.
To even have something in place.
That's right. I'm dealing with someone's emotions, so it's about being able to fine tune and find someone who is on that road, if that makes any sense.
And unfortunately, before if Zara wants to respond, just before you come in, Zara, or Fidia, unfortunately, over the last 100 years or so, that criteria has largely been left up to women. When it comes to defining what a relationship should look like, before you could argue, you could argue or not argue that it was men that set the tone. But over the last 100 years or so, it's been about gradually, especially after the Second World War, it's been more about what the woman wants. This is what the woman wants. And I think we've kind of we've come to a point where it's a bit lopsided. And sometimes a lot of men in a relationship, their voices are forgotten, their feelings are forgotten. They don't matter, and that's hard wearing.
Yeah, ladies, do you want to respond to that? Or
I
Zara,
would just
Fabian?
say, in like, just to like sort of bring it all around into one point, I would say that, when it comes to toxic masculinity, it's just like typically masculine behaviors that are taken to a toxic extent. That's what I would, define
Yeah,
toxic masculinity as.
yeah,
I think obviously some competitive behavior is good, and I feel like taking that competitiveness to the point where they will push themselves beyond the breaking point or dismiss other responsibilities like looking after your wife or looking after your significant other, or to seek like to injure others to prevent them from being able to like compete. That's toxic, I'd say.
yeah,
um a lot of the times that's not asked of men. Men are not asked to, beat somebody up just because they've looked at me wrong or whatnot. Like that's like you wouldn't say that that's what they are being asked of. I feel like what women ask of men is very straightforward. It's very easy to understand. I think it's very something that's, you don't you don't really need to be like you don't need to be the best. You don't need to be the worst. You just need to be decent, right?
How do you
I
articulate
think I would say like the reason that men think that women, for example, have they're the ones that that are able to define what toxic is and stuff like that. I just think that all comes down to like what men think women want. I think a lot of men do not know exactly what women want. I think a lot of men just sort of assume this is what they woman wants, and so they act accordingly when that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. I have never come across a woman who said that she wants a man to beat up somebody just because he's done this or whatever for her on her behalf. That's just something that they've decided to do, thinking that's what she wants when that's not the case at all here.
I would
So I
say
think
that that's an
Some
immature individual. I would say that that's an immature individual because it
right,
will be stupid to
exactly.
go.
That's
But
why
you
I
can
feel like
kind
we have
of
a surplus of like men who are not educated enough. I feel like, expecting people who like boys, for example, who have just left college, now they're 18 and considered a man. I think that's way too soon to be considered a man. It takes a lot more to be a man. There are definitely people who are still like, they could be mid 20s and I would consider them to be immature. I think
mm,
they're being pushed onto society and have
mm.
been given
Well,
responsibilities that's too big for their shoulders in a
yeah,
way, and they haven't been guided to be able to like take this responsibility. But I think if you like think now, if you flip that to what women are having to endure, like they're able to do a lot of the things that men are not able to do at such a young age. And that mainly comes down to how they're raised and how men are raised. That's a whole different kind of worms I don't want to open personally. But I think yeah, I feel like a lot of the things can be tackled earlier on.
I somewhat agree with that and what you're saying. My personal opinion to things is I feel like the idea of a decent man or a good man sounds good, but I think it's not desired at all. I don't think it's desired from women, especially now. Like I can say from my experience in this day and age, I don't think it's something that's desired. I mean, it sounds good. Um,
What do
it
you mean?
sounds like
Desire.
it sounds right, but then it's like once you actually kind of deal with someone who is quote unquote decent, I feel like there's a lot of well, it comes with a lot. So I could say for myself, like I'm currently in a relationship with someone. I've been with them for 3 years. I could say at first, me being the pursuer, pursuing that person, it was all great. But actually getting down to the relationship side where it's equal on a 50-50 basis, there was a lot that she had to learn and also I had to learn as well. But I would say more from her side. Um, in terms of just discipline and structure and
yeah.
different things that I believe um, comes with a decent man and someone that actually has morals and actual purpose, which I don't necessarily feel like a lot of women in this day and age kind of consider before they go into things. I think they kind of look into, you know, okay, well, we're on a financial kind of level where we're both at the kind of same financial level. So, okay, cool, that's one. How does he kind of show me that he wants to be with me? Is it like with material things, or what is it? Is it like the little things? But again, as much as you may, or from my experience, I can speak on, as much as that may sound nice in the grand scheme of things, you just might want a man that's honest, that can, communicate with you. At the same time, with the way the world is and how social media is as well, there's a lot of things that we look at and we're like, oh, like we want this for ourselves, which could also not only bring pressure to this decent man that might have principles or purpose to, maybe get a house or maybe get a car, or maybe, put himself in a position where he can level up. But, it's a societal pressures of, how things are on social media that could also play a part, and that could also like create pressure as well.
It creates influence, isn't it? And we know that social media is a very influential piece of tool that people are using, and obviously you can get ideas from there, you can get advice, but at the end of the day, you take what you want and you leave the rest. But in reality, some of those things are just not happening. I just want to play a clip for you, and this is what we know. You ask where the good men are. And we were asking where all the good women are, because that's the topic. It works both ways. We're going to be very fair here, and we need to have that right across the board. I just want to play you this clip, so if you just have a listen, and I want Fadida or Zara to kind of give us your response to this.
I was a good woman and a terrible wife at the same time. Nobody told me that being a good woman wasn't enough for marriage. And I love my husband with everything that I had, but it still was not working. I had the heart, I had the intention, but what I did not have was the understanding of what it actually meant to be a good wife, not just a good woman. Proverbs 14:1 says, a wise woman builds her home, but a foolish one tears it down with her own hands. I wasn't tearing my house down on purpose. I just didn't know how to build it right. So I just want to share with you guys 3 things that I used to struggle with as a wife versus what I do now. Number 1, I used to speak my mind. Okay. Now I speak with purpose, because not every single thought that I have needs to leave my mouth, especially to my husband. 2, I used to keep score. I was a scorekeeper. Look, with no shame. But now I keep covenant, because marriage is not a competition. We're working together and it's a commitment. So I'm committed to making this work. I used to wait to feel like a good wife. Like once my husband did whatever or acted a certain way to make me be this woman that I've always wanted to be, this wife I've always wanted to be, then I would be her. No. Now I choose to be one. I choose to be one because love is an action. It is not just an emotion. I had to stop trying to be a good woman in my marriage and start becoming a good wife to my husband. Being a good woman, that's a gift. Being a good wife, that's practice. That is a decision that you make every single day. And if you're watching this and you feel the way that I used to feel once upon a time, you are not failing. I say all the time, wifehood is a calling, and we know that anything that the Lord calls us to, the enemy tries to destroy. But if you follow me, you should have enough conviction to know something needs to change. So go be heard.
Wow. Yeah, there's a few things there to unpack. Firstly, I think in terms of the definition of a good wife and a good woman, I think that's a clear distinction there. And many individuals, when they go into a relationship, I think they may feel that they're a good woman, but also, can you be a good wife? And what does it take to be a good wife? We kind of, and let me make this clear. This is not aimed at anybody on this panel, on this show. It's not aimed at anybody, because we're generalizing. And although we might feel that we're not like that, but we're looking at generally across the board. And a generalization doesn't mean that everybody's like that, but there is also going to be exceptions to the rule. And many of you on this show may well be those exceptions. So it's not aimed at any one person. I've got to make that clear. But statistically, when we look at male and female in relationships, there is a list that women come along with and that they expect from a man. And on the face of it, it's like, well, we should have standards. And that's right, you should have standards. Everybody should have a standard. But number 1, how do we communicate those standards? And number 2, is it a two-way street? And what we've seen is that very often it's not a two-way street. And marriage and relationships is a compromise. It's a compromise. And this is going to shock many of you, but statistics play out and show that men give up their happiness for marriage. Sorry, they give up their happiness for the marriage, but women will give up the marriage for their happiness. When we get married, or when we go into a relationship, this is statistically, we go into a relationship, we, as men, we know that there are going to be sacrifices that we're going to have to make. And how we feel and how we think sometimes is irrelevant because of the terms that's been dictated to from the other side. And I'll tell you, I mean, even as a father, they say the least most celebrated holiday is Father's Day. The most celebrated holiday is Christmas and then Mother's Day. So it shows us clearly that there's a distinction between how men are treated and how women are treated. Now, me personally, when it comes to Father's Day, I kind of don't necessarily rely on things and gifts being given to me. My happiness comes from my family doing well, and that's the point. Is because men give up their happiness for a marriage, whereas a woman will give up the marriage for their happiness, which is there are two distinctions there.
Yeah, I just want to ask Zara to respond to that, please. I know it's quite a lot said, and followed by Fadia, and if anybody else wants to contribute to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in my head, I'm quite a black and white person.
Okay.
So when these like conversations come about in terms of these two individuals come together, and the woman's asking for unreasonable things, and like a compromise has to be made. These things. For me personally, speaking as someone who's had my own relationships or whatever the case may be, I agree. People need standards, but I think you're at that initial point where I just don't really have too much grace after that, because if a woman has come and mentioned what it is that she's mentioned, and if you feel as though those points are crazy or she's asking for too much, you must go about your business at that point in time. Like, it's not a thing where you should sit there and compromise, because there are so many women. There are women in abundance. There are men in abundance. I genuinely do think that there are perfect pairs in life. I think you don't have to work too hard for them or compromise too much. I think if the compromise is too much, then you're not compatible. Then there's no compatibility, or the compatibility isn't enough. I don't think that. I think if a man has to give up his happiness to be in a relationship with a woman, then the relationship was doomed from the start.
Yeah, something's definitely wrong there.
No one's asked you to do. Don't marry that woman if you will not be happy in that marriage, because now your children are going to be unhappy. Your wife is going to be unhappy, and you're a soldier for like in a ghost battle, as essentially, because you're resenting someone for something that you didn't make clear enough. Like, I'm getting ready to, you're preparing for headache, when I just don't understand why. I've seen men in happy relationships. I've been with men in happy relationships, and there's not really been much sacrifice needed. There are compromises in times where just things that human beings need to compromise on. The same way me and Fadia have to compromise. And it's just relationship wise.
Just as a point,
but there are some things.
Sorry, just as a point of clarity, there, guys. When the statistics said not those that are preparing for marriage, but those that have already been in marriage. So they've probably been in marriage for a while. So it wasn't those that are thinking or contemplating marriage and they're kind of negotiating their contract. This is people that have been in marriage and have been experiencing each other for a while. So just sort of point of clarity there. So it's not necessarily that that individual made their feelings known and that the other side said, well, why or what, or they questioned it. It's people that have been in a relationship and they've been experiencing each other for a while.
I'd say just to add on to, sorry, I know, just to add on to what Zara was saying, the other side of that argument as well would be, if a woman is leaving a marriage to look for happiness outside, I would say that's because she wasn't finding happiness within the marriage. So a lot of the things that cause a woman to leave, it's a lot for a woman to leave if she's married happily and she, her and her husband and her kids and everyone is happy in that family. It would take a lot for a woman to leave that. And so for her to have left that situation and to go on outside and find happiness elsewhere, I would say that's the only reason that could be is because she was unhappy within the marriage. And
not necessarily. Can I interject here, please?
no, I think that it takes a lot for a woman to leave, and she would never want to leave if she was being treated well within that marriage. I think that's my point of view. But yeah, you can definitely say what you want to say.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I interject?
Yeah,
Please?
Darren, you can come in.
Okay. All right. I agree with the gentleman's statistics. I've heard that said a lot of times before, and when you look at divorce rates, it's about over 70% of divorces are initiated by women, and a lot of it is no fault divorce, meaning there's not anything directly specifically that's happened, i.e., abuse, i.e., excessive cheating or anything like that. The top reason is finances, but a lot of it is just a woke up on a whim. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that woman's unhappy because she's being treated unhappy. She's being made to feel unhappy. A lot of the times it's because they've forgotten what their duty is in the relationship, just like the man has to have a duty in a relationship as well. So sometimes marriages are thrown away based on a whim, based on a feeling, based on a Disney kind of fantasy. Marriages in reality is like a contract. It's like a business. And there are times when you don't want to go to work, right? But you're going to get up and still go to work and show up and do what you got to do. It's the same kind of principle. Now, I'm not talking about the outliers where you got, people who are actually in abusive relationships. Those people need to leave those situations immediately. Yeah. But we're talking about a situation where that person, for whatever reasons, has a feeling. Yeah, a feeling that could be a fleeting feeling, and there's many a woman that has regretted divorcing their husband based on just a feeling that that man never treated them bad or anything like that. They just didn't like the monotony of the same old necessarily, but not that sometimes you got to push through. You got the ebbs and the flows, but it's not going to be a Disney fantasy every single day. They think of the marriage, the wedding, and not the marriage in a lot of cases.
So sorry, Philip. Just before you go, and a great conversation, and I can't wait for you to respond. If you want to leave some information or drop your views about this particular program, 07585 364475. Drop a text message and leave it with us there, or go to info@visionradio345.co.uk or visionradio345@gmail.com to leave your messages, or just leave it underneath the tab on the YouTube channel. Great stuff. So, Fredida, do you want to respond back to what Darren just said?
Yes, just before I forget what I want to say.
Yes, sorry about that.
I would say, no, it's okay, don't worry. I'd say, obviously, I do agree that in many countries, women file for divorce more often than men. I have seen that as well. I definitely agree with that. I think that the reason that it's so high may be because I think women are less willing than previous generations to remain in unhappy or unhealthy marriages. If a woman is filing for a divorce, it's more to do with there doesn't have to be abuse. There doesn't have to be any cheating involved. It could just be dissatisfied with unequal divisions of household labor or maybe emotional labor. Like, women are more likely to take the administrative step of filing, even when both spouses agree that the marriage should end. And I think that there doesn't have to be any physical anything involved. It can just genuinely be something as huge as not dividing household chores equally. I think duties also come into play. Like, if the woman is meant to do all the cooking and the cleaning, that's absolutely fine, as long as the man is doing what he's supposed to do. But if it's like they're both working, for example, and they're both working, and then the woman is still expected to do the household labor, there's a clear divide. There's meant to be something happening, and there's no initiative taken to solve that. And I think it lies on the man, and I think the woman should definitely leave that marriage.
But don't you
not really
but don't you also feel that a lot of these things are happening? Obviously they're happening, and people have got to try and make things work. But don't you think that some of the responsibilities needs to be balanced out? Because obviously it's about the responsibility and accountability of how things work. And in some cases we're not finding that. Some of them are not finding that.
Think,
and it's causing a huge problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think reasons that marriages are being split apart right now is genuinely because, like you said, it's turned it's turned into like, it's not a partnership anymore. A lot of people are trying to, you know, dig at the other person to do more, and the other person is doing more. But I think the only way that we can move forward is if it's a partnership, and if both of the spouses are, you know, they understand their roles, like you've said, they understand what's expected of them. And these are conversations that need to happen before you get into a marriage.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a logical question real quick?
Okay, go on.
Yeah. Okay. Can you have two captains of a ship?
If both of them are working, then you're both the captains. If you're both working, you're both raising them kids. It's not 100 years ago anymore. It's not 100 years ago anymore.
Okay. So let's keep it respectful. I want to hear what Daryl's saying.
You cannot have two captains of a team.
Even like the terminology captain.
One second.
I think the terminology captain.
One second. Darren, just one moment, please. Just one moment. So I want Zara just hear what he's got to say, and then I just want you to respond. Yeah? Is that okay? I know you've got a lot to say. There's loads of things you want to talk about. There's just Darren, if you can just pose a question again, and then we get Zara to answer.
All right. So the question I was just asking is like, can you have more than one captain of a ship? Yeah. And the reality is that no, because you need someone to make the ultimate decision. Yeah. And they say heavy is the head that wears the crown. So being the top of something is not always as glamorous as it looks. Now, in a structure of, like I say, a marriage or a house, because listen, women are the gateway to intercourse. Men are the gateway to relationships, i.e. a marriage. Man has to get on the one knee and ask that lady because he's inspired by her to want to spend the rest of his life with her. Yeah. Now, what I'm talking about in the hierarchy now is that lady trusts, because she has a clear idea of what she expects her man to be. She trusts her man and shows him respect by allowing him to be the leader, the head. But guess what? What supports the head? The neck. That is the lady. The neck can also turn the head, but it's by utilizing the femininity that ladies have. Now, it's not always about going head to head on a competitive, I'm in charge, because it's not always that way. Now, a good guy who has a good woman will listen to his woman's counsel. He will make the final decision, and it also means he takes the responsibility of whatever the outcome is. But what the problem is in a lot of cases is it is a competition, and that respect and also that trust isn't there. And how we as can I just say this final point? How we as men interpret love is through respect. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Darren.
I yield. I yield.
Zara, do you want to say something, or it's okay?
Zara, you want to go ahead and say?
No, go ahead, Fadwa. Go ahead.
I think I actually completely disagree with the previous statement. In a relationship, there can absolutely be two captains, there can be two leaders, in the sense that both partners have equal value, influence, and responsibility. What tends to not work well is having two people who both insist on having the final say on every issue. When neither person is obviously willing to compromise, decisions can become constant power struggle. I think a healthy relationship often looks like, you know, you're both sharing decisions, different strengths in different areas, mutual respect, flexibility, things like that can lead a relationship forward. But if there's, like, say, one person or one party in the relationship which is meant to be a partnership, if that person is trying to say, oh, I have final say, final verdict, I don't think that's a partnership. I don't think that you would have a healthy marriage in that way. One person is silenced, the other person is not, and I think it tends to lead to, like I said before,
silence. You see,
can we just get
I didn't say anything about silence, you know. I didn't say anything like that.
Can we just get sorry, Darren, can we just get a response from Kelvin, please?
I didn't say anything like that. I said a man will seek counsel from his woman. That means he will listen to her. The thing is, he'll be the one to make the final decision, and whatever the outcome is, he's going to take the accountability and responsibility for it. That's all I said. I didn't say, "Oh, you shut up," basically, and what I say goes. That's not what I'm talking about.
But saying things like there should be one captain and stuff like that, that's basically insinuating that there should be one person that takes the final decision, and I disagree with that.
Wherever it is you work, you're going to have a hierarchy.
Building a foundation in regard to both parties. Okay, we don't communicate enough. all right, which is the problem that we've always had for years.
Absolutely, I
Okay?
agree.
If you're cooking for me on Saturday, I'm going to cook the food on Sunday. It's tit for tat.
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Right.
it's about listening to your partner. It's about, okay, I'm a man, yes, but do not belittle me, do not feminize me.
Well, who
Okay,
said anything
because
about that?
if you're looking after the kids, I will look after the kids too. All right.
No one
But
said
at the same
anything
time,
about
when
that,
I'm
my friend. No one's talking about dictatorship here. You know, that's not what we're talking about here. Yeah,
I'm not saying that.
but we're
Sorry,
talking
saying-
about.
I'm-
You're talking
sorry,
about
guys.
the role
be
the
fair,
women have
I
won,
think
and a
Fion's
lot
had
of
his
the
hand
women
up
don't
for
feel
a
like they
very long
respect
Yeah,
time.
hold on, guys. Can we just hold on a second? Can we just get Fiona in? Great comments, great discussion. Can we just have Fiona in on a point before he loses track of what he wants to say?
hopefully I haven't actually forgot what I was going to say. No, I think I'm good. I think the main issue from what I've been hearing, like everyone speak about, and just like my personal views as well, I think transparency is a very, very vulnerable kind of thing to kind of speak about, especially as men, like how we are as with in terms of our pride. But I feel like as well with women as well, I think in terms of transparency, that from my experience or from what I've heard anyway, I don't necessarily feel like again, like I said before, I feel like it sounds good, but I feel like it's not something that is fully. It's something that is fully like I don't feel women are fully prepared to hear the transparency sometimes, and I feel like that could kind of raise a dent in the relationship just due to the fact that the transparency might make you look at the man different, or the man might feel like he feels different for being transparent in certain things, which is where, like, you know, communication kind of gets lost, secrets kind of, you know, intervene within the relationship. So
and I think we have to, as there's a saying, iron sharpen iron. You have to keep sharpening each other, and that's with all respect. If that's not happening and it's not balanced right, then we're going to get these issues that we're talking about now. And I think Fahida was saying, Andra was saying the same thing about communication. And sometimes, let's face it, sometimes we don't want to communicate. We just get lazy and don't say things. But you know, and sometimes things go off the handle. But you'll have to go back to the foundation which you set regarding your morals and your boundaries that you have for each other. Platform now, we're living and learning. We're speaking to young people, and we're all here trying to get some kind of knowledge of something, or just to increase ourselves and do better and develop. Because we're all work in progress. Nobody here has got it perfect.
No. I mean, I'm myself and Mr. Cain are probably the more senior members of the of this panel.
Are you sure that?
Controversy is great, isn't it? No, I mean, seriously speaking, I mean, I've been around the block a lot, more than a few times, and my current relationship, I'm a traditionalist. I'm going to be late on the line, and this might be the disconnect between the female members of the panel. I'm a traditionalist, so when I come in, I expect my dinner to be ready for me. I expect the slippers to be at the door. I expect my clothes to be washed. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because I'm a traditionalist. That's how I am.
And there isn't anything wrong with that. I think if you're doing what you're supposed to do, that will be what's happening.
But on the other side, I've said to my partner, I don't want to see you climbing up ladders. I don't want to see you climbing on the roof to fix the slates. I don't want to see you painting the house. I don't want to see you making sure that the building's secured. I don't want to see you defending anyone that comes to the front door and defending the family. I don't want to see that. I train me and my sons for that. Yeah? So there are roles, and what I'm trying to get at is that there are roles and there are responsibilities. And I do agree with what Darren said, that let me put put it in a slightly different way, not using the terminology of captain. Anything with two heads is a monster. Let's be very clear. Anything with two heads is a monster. And I think our wisdom doesn't allow us to go beyond further than what we see currently and what we've built up through feeling and through misinformation. Now, my mum said something to me one day, and it was I had to sit up and take notice. She said she cannot understand these modern day women because it was a pleasure for her to serve my dad. She said that. And, it made me think. And what it is, over a period of time, and I'm going to say this is against the guys. There was a certain period of time where guys began to abuse their position, right? Because everybody has to have a position and a function. The hand cannot say to the eye that I'm going to pluck you out and do your job. It's not that one's more important than the other. These are functions within a body. And a marriage is also a body of two people coming together, right? So these things have been designed by a designer that's far more cleverer than us, right? And there is a order of things. And because we've messed with that natural order, women began to feel that their position or their function was no longer a love but a chore because of certain types of abuse and subjugation that men began to put them through. However, when men began to fix themselves up, that was not necessarily being listened to. And we've seen it evident on the panel today. If we say something like there has to be a head, then it's taken as women are going to be subjugated in some way, shape, or form. And that's not necessarily the case because it's not necessarily what we think or what we feel. We're talking about a reality. And I realize that I'm also in a reality in a modern day setting. So I cook, I clean, I iron. When we're going out, I iron all the clothes because I realize that my partner works. Yeah. And I realize that there's no woman that can cook, and Mr. Cain will tell you this as well, that can cook and iron and sew as good as me. So I don't necessarily need a woman for those things, but especially when you start having children and you're talking about keeping the structure and for longevity of your children and the family, there has to be decisions that are made, and two heads can end up being a monster.
Yeah. So so your view on that. Let's just get back to because we're in the same, or we're on the same page here, but there's loads of strands to this. So Job, I mean, when we say when you say where all the good men gone, or what young people are saying, or young adults, or people in their older age are saying where all the good men gone, you can see what type of thing we're talking about. Sometimes it's not just about the person being good, but it's the character of the person that makes him that person who is good enough for you or whoever that may be. Do you understand what I'm saying? So sometimes it's about the character of the person. But do you want to respond to anything that we've just said?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about like how it was a lot better back in the day. Like there was more clear structure and more guidelines, but I do think that's quite disingenuous. I think it's better for one party as opposed to the others. I think.
So bring us up to speed. Bring us up to speed. What's your current thought now on where you see what does a good man look like for a young person or a person of your age or your kind of generation? Just give us an insight into that. What do you feel about that?
I just think, I think most of all, it's men and women missing each other's points. I think we're arguing the same thing and nothing at the same time. I don't think there aren't good men or aren't good women. I think we're just refusing to find each other. I think people are looking for people that they want as opposed to people that they're compatible with, and then you're ending up in sad relationships.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, the reason I would say I disagree with the fact that like there has to be a leader in a relationship. I think if the man in this particular relationship is qualified to lead, then let him lead. But everyone's individual relationships are very, very different. No one relationship is the same, and we can't base everyone's lives or models off okay, like a man in most cases is most competent, because it's just not true.
Yeah.
And I don't think that one person should have one decision every time. I think life is a game. Life is very much a case of who is the most competent in this very moment in time. And sometimes it's going to be the woman. That's life. Sometimes it's going to be the woman, sometimes it's going to be the man. I was raised as a twin. I have a twin brother. We're almost the same. But he has strengths and I have mine. There's going to be exams that he passed, there's going to be exams that I pass and fail. And that's the structure of life. Now, when we go off into life and we go into our relationships now, nothing has changed apart from the fact that it's a romantic relationship. His partner isn't going to be more or less competent than I was. That's just going to be the game. And it comes down to, let's be realistic. in this particular relationship, what's the need? What is the call? Like, not just, oh, well, he's the man, so he's going to lead and he's going to make the decisions. Too simplistic, and I think that's too problematic, because then
Missed the whole point. Missed the whole point. There's no way when I said anything about that did I say anything about.
I don't think anyone's talking about you here, mate.
I was speaking about the whole general.
No, but that.
Can I say something?
I'm talking from a general perspective. Yeah, a decent man, the type of man you.
I just think some people are just listening to not.
Sorry, guys, can we just have some? Yeah, guys, hold on 1 second. We have one person speaking at the time, please. Thank you.
All right, can I just close? Can I just say what I've got to say, real quick, if you don't mind?
Darren.
Look.
Yep, Darren, go ahead, please. And then we'll be a fair
I'm saying
afterwards.
a decent man is going to listen to his woman's counsel and vice versa. I'm not talking about a dictatorship. I'm not talking about, because I am the man, what I say goes. You're right. People are going to have strengths in different areas. But as the gentleman said earlier on about being a traditionalist, well, when it comes to certain things, you are going to need a hierarchy, and also pressure is built for shoulders, not hips. And a lot of ladies do not want the leadership role. They do not want to be leading the man, right? Because it will become tiring. It becomes boring. So if you really meet a guy that you feel like you've got to keep like making decisions and all that, then that's not really the guy for you, to be quite honest. Yeah,
okay.
No, but a guy that's intelligent is going to understand when
Can we have Zara? Just let Zara say her piece. Go on with Zara. Respond to that, please.
I feel like a part of that is the issue also. Like, you've just listened to everything I said, and your conclusion was, to dismiss me completely, even though I was speaking to a few different people all at once. My point is, there's an intelligent man is going to know when someone else is more capable for the job. That doesn't mean that he's demasculated or anything like that. It means that they've made a decision, and the decision is, okay, what do you think? All right, then that's the decision we go with, because that's what you think. Not, oh, well, I'm the man, let me sign it off. Like, that's just all like, it's just extra stuff.
Well, I think that's how you're perceiving it. That's how you're perceiving it. Yeah. Two people can come to an agreement and say, okay, you go with your idea or whatever the case may be, right? But at the end of the day, when it comes to certain situations, you need someone who's going to make a decision based on the facts and the information that's there, and not their emotions, how they feel.
Sorry, Dan, could you just move to a better place? You just kind of slight echo behind your voice.
No, it's not me, There's nothing.
Okay.
There's nothing here. Okay. Yeah, but I was just saying, in certain situations, you're going to need someone who can make a decision based on facts, information, data that's there. In a lot of cases, and it's not a dig at ladies, we're generalizing here. Generally speaking, ladies are emotional creatures. Sometimes you're going to make decisions based on emotions. Yeah. little things about where we're going to eat or whatever, things like that. That's minor. We're talking about serious life-changing things, like where we're going to live. I'm going to probably have to take a pay cut to be able to go forward in life and stuff like that, because I'm going to have to like study something new maybe, and it's going to mean not earning the same amount, but once I finish I'm going to earn more. There's going to be different situations where there's certain things that a man has to take the lead. Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is this: it's not about belittling anybody.
No.
Yeah, it's about the role. Yeah, it's about the fact that we take, like the gentleman said, when we give up our happiness for a marriage. Yeah, there's a lot of men that are in situations where the woman's not treating them right, but for the sake of the children, for the sake of the structure, they will give up their happiness and continue staying in that situation. Yeah. But a lot of ladies are not meeting men halfway by being the women that we would like to be. So it's never asked. The question's never asked, what do we want? What do we require? And sometimes it's as simple as just respect.
And sometimes this is sometimes where we say sometimes the good man has actually passed you, and you don't actually see it. I want to hold it there because it's a very interesting conversation. We're coming up to a minute to the end of the show. I'd like to thank everyone for coming on this show today, and we're talking about where the good men go. There was a load of things that was said, and I appreciate everybody listening and being respectful, because it's not about pointing the finger, it's not about putting people down. It's about us walking away from here and learning something a little bit more about ourselves and making ourselves better people. So I'd just like to thank Kelvin B for coming on today. Thank you, Kelvin.
Thank you. And
Yep.
let's listen to each other as we've always been doing.
Yeah. Fionn, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Darren, thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. No problem.
And last but not least, Fredia and Zara. I know we could have had some more women on, but we had a very, very interesting conversation. We respect your views and what you're saying, and we hope that you've learned something from us as well as probably grown adults in yourselves. But we just hope that you've learned something, and we can move on and do the
I hope
best
you
we
guys
can.
learned something from us.
No, absolutely, because this is what it's about. This is what it's about. You live and you learn, and you can learn from young people if we listen. And I think the panel was very respectful listening as well, because
definitely.
two different perspectives there, two different generations definitely. Because as Ian said, you know, back in the day, and you mentioned back in the day, but then we asked to speed it up, which we did, and then we got the answers what we're hearing now in 2026. Some great and some not, but we have to look at these things and look on the reality. There are some women out there who just let the good man pass by, you know, and for whatever reason that is. And as I said, we can go into this on another program. But thank you all for joining the program. Vision Radio 345, Mr. Cain and the Ironman.
Yep, it's been a pleasure to be here, Mr. Cain. Thank again all the guests for coming in, and it was an interesting debate, and it was good listening to all the different points. For me, I like to listen to young people. I like to get their perspective on things. They are the future. It's very good to listen to all demographics. I mean, Mr. Cain said 2 generations. I think it's probably 3 generations.
Well, okay, guys, thanks for having you on, and we'll catch you up next time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Well, I think that was it. Very interesting conversation. I think, as you said, Ian, there's a load of things that was said on during the discussion, and we're going to have to listen to it and pick something out and then create something else. But what I did like about it, that the young people who were on there, the 2 young ladies were listening, and they agreed there was a bit of a disagreement there with obviously one of the guests, but this is what it's about.
For the most part, there was listening.
Yeah. The most part is that we're listening and we're learning and we're trying to understand how young people think. This is it from Vision Radio 345. Mr. Cain, we're going to be out of here. Ironman, thanks for coming in.
No, thank you. It's nice to be back here. Nice to many more boardrooms to come.
It's going to be called the Cabinet Meeting. He told me to call the show the Cabinet Meeting. Yeah. So don't be surprised if you see the next show called the Cabinet Meeting.
Yeah.
We're out of it.
Cabinet Meeting.
This is Vision Radio 345. Best in music, awesome in talk, serving our community. This is Vision Radio 345.